Calling all beings, y'all. Let's get it.
Put your hands together. Put your hands together.
Welcome back to Calling All Beings Wednesday, baby. It's a UFO Disclosure Symposium being put on by Stephadelic, UAP Experiencer Stephanie. I'm your host, DJ, along with my brother, the artistic one, Monet Nathan.
What's up, y'all? How's it going?
All right, brother. Good evening, man. I'm glad I could sort of make it to this shindig. It was a little touch and go, but I'm here. You know, but it was never touch and go. Never, ever for Flarius Kevin.
What's up, guys? How's it going?
What's up,
Good. Good to see you.
Yo.
Good to see you. And you know,
Good to
up
see
in the upper right-hand corner, there's this young lady who has a penchant for doing UFO research. It's kind of weird. Hi, Deb.
Hey there. Hi, everybody.
What's up?
Will you cop and admit to it?
A little bit of research once in a while, like
Okay.
a lot.
Okay. Once in a while, a lot. And the woman of the hour, Stephadelic, baby, give it up.
Hey, what's up? Thanks for the warm welcome. Glad to be here. Yeah.
It's all good. And we're about to bring on this guest here. Man. Hello, Joshua. How you doing? Williams, hello. Anon et. Cool.
E.T.
I like that. Anon et. Oh, sorry. See, that's why I have Nathan.
That's why
for
you pay me the big
translations.
bucks.
Up his 401k. All right. This is what I want to tell you. I want to bring this brother up in here. Carl the Crusher. And you know what, Nathan? Bring him on screen because I want to say this. My man. What? Yeah! Woo!
Say it to my face, DJ.
I'm going to say it to your face. Carl the Crusher, man. Let's talk about this, man. Okay.
Let's talk.
Your YouTube channel. You have more followers than the nations of Slovenia and Montenegro combined. Can you believe that?
The power.
That was my
More.
goal.
They have 2.1 million. And then if I add Montenegro at 639,000, you still have more.
I know. That's what I thought when I started YouTube in 2009. I was like, if I'm not stopping until I pass Montenegro.
Well, I'm going to tell you something, Carl. You have really beat that Carl vibe because you've actually, even if I add in Liechtenstein and Luxembourg, you still haven't beat. So,
Right.
I mean, anybody who beats Liechtenstein, Nathan, come on, man.
I know. Well, look, I remember years ago when you called out Montenegro and you said, "I'm coming for you," and they didn't believe you, but here you are. So,
Got to set your goals high. You know what I mean?
Okay, Eastern Europe. He's Slovakia. Step back, man.
everyone's on notice now. For sure.
That's right.
Welcome, Carl, man. I've just become aware of you because obviously it wasn't enough that all these nations, that the entire nation was following you, and somehow it escaped me. But man, amazing content to watch you because you're out there immersed in the discovery. So, you know, like when I met Deb, for instance, Carl, she was literally using a phone. She didn't even have the laptop she's currently using yet. And she had done this enormous amount of research just on her phone and unearthed all these documents. You're actually out there immersed in the terrain discovering things. Please, how did this happen? Please.
Yeah, you know, it's kind of funny. I've been into it my whole life, like curious about it. And when I moved down here to Southern Utah, like almost 7 years ago, I was watching TV, and it was honestly like an episode of Ancient Aliens on TV, and I was just wandering by, and I noticed, I was like, man, all these carvings and the petroglyphs they were showing are all on this like red sandstone, rock, and limestone. So I got curious and jumped on the internet, and I was like, holy crap, these are like actually all around me everywhere that I live. So I got curious and started going out and looking. And I realized, I was like, man, I have a knack for actually finding these. And I started finding some that weren't even documented around, and realizing it seemed like there was patterns to them. There was clues. It seemed like they pointed in different directions and seemed to tell like a story beyond what the official story and what the public and even the Native American tribes were telling. So I started trying to piece it together and really immerse myself into it and into the folklore and the history around it. And it kind of consumed my whole life. I started making videos about my expeditions around it. It took me up to the Uinta Basin, up to Blind Frog Ranch and around Skinwalker Ranch. I've been over by Area 51 and all over the place. And so, and recently, a lot of these petroglyphs have led to a finding, and now I'm actually going to be presenting like an hour-long presentation at the UFO Disclosure Symposium on Saturday about some of the stuff that I've discovered. It's been pretty wild. But
That's what I'm talking about. The UFO Disclosure Symposium. That is why Carl is here, because he's going to be presenting. I wish I was going to be there. Seth is also part of organizing this joint. I'm going to just call it a joint. And I'm going to pass this over to Money Nathan, but I think I'd be remiss if I didn't at least ask you a very simple question, which is, what was that feeling like the first time you discovered something, you saw something from an ancient people? Because I don't know if anybody else on the panel knows what that would feel like.
for me personally, because I studied so much about it, and I go out hiking a lot, and you go out a lot and don't find anything. That's the part that a lot of people don't realize, is that I'll upload on my YouTube channel maybe like a 15-minute long video, but that might be at the end of 3 or 4 days of hiking and looking and not discovering anything. And so sometimes I'll turn around a corner and I'll finally discover something that I feel like I've been trying to find. And it's strange. It's like a mix of emotions. Sometimes it's so spectacular. I've like actually like sat down and got emotional and like cried for a little bit, because the amount of time that it's taken to like go hike and look for it and the effort. But also there is like a spiritual connection for me when I walk into these areas. I feel like I might be the first person to see this in maybe 8,000 years or something. And so I feel like I'm almost trespassing into someone's territory or land or their home. And so I find myself talking out loud, like walking up to the area, like saying thank you, and I'm expressing gratitude, and I'll sit down and get emotional for a minute, and then I just take it all in. And then once I feel like I've kind of absorbed it and my energy's there, then I'll turn the camera on and try to capture it as best I can. But I've had some pretty powerful experiences, especially when I set the equipment aside and I'll do like meditation and really try to connect with the area. I've had some good and bad experiences both. So but I feel really connected with it, especially with this location that I've discovered recently that I'm going to be talking about at the symposium. I feel like I've been crawling around the rocks in this area for over a year and very connected to it. I didn't even realize until later that where I was sitting and doing meditations in this one location was actually the ancient shaman's seat, where they used to sit and do the rituals in the ancient times. I had no idea I was sitting on the actual rock itself where those things were being done. For like a year, I've been sitting there trying to connect with the petroglyphs and what they're trying to say. And I was found out later that I was sitting in the actual spot they used to sit to do the ancient ceremonies. It was pretty interesting. But yeah, so I love it. It's a big part of my life now. It's kind of become an obsession of mine.
I love I love that you have a process, and it's great that you kind of just it's almost like a yoga again. You get comfortable in the space, you kind of take stock of where you are, and then you go about setting to actually, instead of just running around crazy. These guys know that I'm all the time looking for Bigfoot, and all I found so far are deer feces, and that's when I was doing sit-ups. But let me pass it over to Money Nathan.
Oh, it's great to talk with you tonight. Your passion for this is just obvious. It's really cool to see what you're doing out in the field and to see your involvement, not only in your own research, but what's happening in the larger UFO community. With your research in particular, I find it interesting because in America, just for example, we kind of don't have a very strong connection to our past. And you have intentionally tried to reconnect with a past with the past that is part of our land, that wasn't our land for a very long time. And I find that just to be very rewarding and fulfilling and redeeming. And I'm sure that as you talk with people, you probably encounter that as well. I'm also interested in the fact that, rocks, they do have a propensity to crush things. And you're also a crusher, and you said you talk sometimes when you're out there. Are you communicating with the rocks? And now that people know the rocks are talking back with you, are you worried that other geologic formations may start reaching out and having conversation?
That's funny because I used to study and read, and I still do, the work of Carl Jung. And when he, as the philosopher, when he was a young child, he used to go out in his backyard and sit on a rock and meditate. And he would imagine himself as if he was the rock, and that there was a little boy sitting on top of him, and then that he was the earth and there was a rock with a boy on top of him, and he would shift his perspective around. So I guess I can relate to that a little bit. I do that when I go to these areas and meditate. I don't know that I necessarily talk to the rock, but I definitely open my consciousness up to other dimensions or time spaces or realities to try and see if there's any intuition or anything that I can get from that or learn or connect with. I feel like it's part of what they do in remote viewing, and all kinds of stuff is sort of connected. So I try to open up my aperture and tap into all that instead of just plow into an area with my mind racing and my agenda going to get a video film. So I try to do all of that at once. But as far as the rocks talking back, yeah, I don't know if it's the rocks or Mother Earth or if it's another time, but I definitely sometimes feel like there's a connection that opens up for sure.
And that's come through. I mean, the little videos that you've already shown, there seems to be a real sense of communion with the landscape. And I'm wondering if it's not just a matter of a phenomenon that just so happens to be there, but it really is a connection that you have made with whatever that happens to be. And I don't know. I'm sure you've explored that and thought about that. As the ancients who used to live there, no doubt had a connection as well with those particular places.
Yeah, I try to approach it all as if these locations, if they are responsive to intention, I try to go into it with the right intention and to get that out of it, because that's the way the myths and the folklore all relate, that if you go into these with your life in disarray or with bad intentions, that you're going to reflect that or take like a hitchhiker home or have bad experiences that result, maybe even nightmares or things that affect your life personally. And so I try to approach all that out of like respect and caution, and go into it mindful of that. And I also try to back it up with science too. I take in, a tri-field meter. I take in different investigative equipment, night vision, and so that when things do try to like kick up or occur, or if paranormal things start to happen, I try to capture it. And yeah, I've actually caught quite a bit of strange stuff on my night vision camera, and so it's going to be fun to reveal all of that soon. So
exciting.
I believe Kevin and his long hair would like to speak with your beard.
Let's do it.
Hey,
my
Mr.
My
Carl.
beard's got a lot to say.
Yeah. All right. I hope so. I've got a lot to say too. So, Carl Jung, right? Memories, Dreams, and Reflections. Seems like you're a Carl Jung fan. I am too. Yeah. He's one of my big influences. Also, Graham Hancock, Terence McKenna. I think maybe we could probably talk.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering. I noticed that Hancock and McKenna, they explored the psychedelic aspect. I was wondering, have you explored that as it relates to shamanism?
I've had one experience with mushrooms that I did with a friend of mine on one occasion, and honestly, it was a really amazing experience that was validating to me. This was after probably doing meditation for like a year. And I felt like it was like confirming to a lot of the meditation experiences and like visionary things that have happened to me just in my own spiritual practice. That's honestly the only time I've ever done it. I feel like because my research does get criticized, or if I do post videos, if I find something, it's going to get questioned. I don't go out into the field using psychedelics, and honestly, because I go alone, I would never do that, and at home. But I do think that it's valid to explore all aspects of the phenomenon, and I know that even in higher levels, even in the government and the CIA and Stanford Research Institute, they were experimenting with all aspects of that and human consciousness and connecting with other realities. And so I think there's validity to exploring it, but I think it should just definitely be done with caution and not for entertainment purposes.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I agree with
I think
that.
I think it would be helpful at maybe helping create maybe a map of the psyche consciousness, I think maybe. Yeah, but definitely in a controlled setting, I agree. For sure.
Yeah, I think there's something to that, whether it be through the different methods that are coming out recently, you know, the CE5 or different meditation approaches to the phenomenon through consciousness. Mm-hmm. And sometimes, you know, I think through different psychedelics or even, you know, approaches with auditory stimulation. You have like binaural and hemisync audio and different things that can, I think it's just different approaches for different people and what they're attuned to. And some people are more of a shamanistic approach and might use different herbs or medicines to try and approach it that way. And other people go out into nature and connect with environments and have different approaches. And so I think to each their own, there's validity to it, as long as it's done the proper way. Yeah.
Right.
For sure.
Thank you.
I needed to unmute to get none other than your co-conspirator in this event, Miss Stephanie Steffadelic.
Hey, what's up, Carl? You know, it is serendipitous that the Disclosure Symposium came across you to orchestrate all of these interviews with people. And you do, you know, all of this, you know, research on your own, and it all just so happened to come together. And I just really do believe that you have been placed in this position to be almost the facilitator. And not only that, but when you know, discovered what you came across in just past near Area 51 on the same trip to Magic Mesa, I just think that was also brought to you for this very reason. I think that there was more to you just facilitating these, you know, interviews, and that you needed to deliver more information. So kind of bouncing off of what Kevin had mentioned, using these different items such as, say, like the auditory stimulation. I know that you're really great friends with Michelle Miners, and she is just a beautiful soul, and she's contributed so much to the Uinta Basin. I know that there's potential for something related to that to come forth this weekend. So is there anything that you can kind of chime in on that for the audience?
Yeah, I think that Michelle and I have both had kind of experiences where, you know, she is a kind of a liaison to the Native American, the First Nations people for the state of Utah. And she works with me a lot so that when I go to a lot of these sites, I'm not, you know, trouncing on culture and traditions or approaching things inappropriately. So she helps me a lot with that. And especially if I need to negotiate with Native American tribes and talk with them to get access to things, she helps me with that as well quite a bit. But we have a lot of similar background experiences that we connected on. So when we became friends and I started to, you know, trust her and tell her some of my experiences, she had a lot of the same. So she's seen a lot of the same things, and her view of the petroglyphs and the ancient history revolving around them and its connection with the UFO phenomenon and the other paranormal aspects of it, she kind of has the same experience and viewpoint, and is trying to bridge that gap between the ancient Native American cultures and their teachings and beliefs and the modern approach, and also right in the middle of it, the scientific approach and the equipment and everything required to try and merge all of these aspects together. And so somehow in the middle of all that, here I am, like just like a YouTuber and able to be friends with everybody, and somehow have like a knack to be able to take all these complicated concepts from the ancient esoteric secrets from the past and the philosophies and the science and all of that, and then kind of the fun woo-woo stuff in the middle that everybody likes as well, and be able to mix that all together and communicate it in a way to people that they can understand and realize that it is all connected. Because on the surface, people like to just look at UFOs as being spaceships from outer space from another planet, and then, you know, paranormal stuff has to do with ghosts and demons and their religion, and they're completely different categories or something. And people, I think, have a hard time bridging that gap and then having it be relatable to their day-to-day life and reality and how to approach it. And I'm really trying to do that. And somehow this symposium and everybody involved in it is all on the same page with that. And it's really refreshing and collaborative in the effort instead of like territorial and trying to keep it all in one box or the other. And I like that. So I think it's all coming together naturally like it's supposed to.
100% connecting all of the dots. Yep, perfectly described. Thank you.
Yeah, you bet.
Carl, you spoke about investigative tools. Is your beard one of those tools that you use that aids in these investigation? Is it pivotal or?
It is absolutely
Nathan thing?
pivotal.
Yes, it is.
It's because the times when I'm out there alone, it's so much easier with my beard to have like a cute girl right there with me, and they just come right. No.
Right. All right, let me get a better question.
When I look like a Christmas ham, I'm way more cold and alone out there, and I can't. It just doesn't work. The skinwalkers don't even want to talk to me. It's embarrassing.
They don't even want to haunt you.
Everything's swiping left, even the paranormal stuff. They don't.
I feel like that was classified information until now. You just uncovered that, DJ.
Oh my God, Deb's just let me know that we passed over her. So, all right, the question that I had for you is going to hold because right now I'm in the penalty box. Right now, Deb has put me in the penalty box. I'm there with like the goon from the third line on this hockey squad. So, Debs, please go right ahead. My apologies.
No, it's okay. I think it's okay because I'm so excited that I will be getting to talk to you all on my own for like a whole hour and a half in the future. And I'm trying to refrain from asking all the millions of questions that I want to ask. But I guess I'll ask you one experiencer-based question because you mentioned Jung, and do you feel like there's a possibility that collective consciousness does sort of play a role in why it is so many experiencers have similar experiences, including through meditation and trance?
Yeah. Wow, that's a really deep and profound question for me to answer because
perfect for the symposium.
Do you want me to throw it out there? I'll go for it. Let's go down
for it.
Do you want to go down the Carl Jung rabbit hole here? I really feel like my personal relationship with reality is a lot like the best way to describe it is sort of like a dream where when you go to sleep at night, you realize that everything in the dream, whether you see another person, a car, a house, or a scene, is really made of an extension of your own subconscious, like projected outside yourself as a realm or a reality that you're kind of walking around in and interacting in. And you don't even realize that it is you that you're kind of roaming around in within the dreamscape. And in our day-to-day life, when we're awake and going around, I feel like it's kind of the same thing, but the rules are just slightly more physical or slowed down and deliberate, and it involves more of a collective because we're in a physical reality instead of a non-physical psychic reality like we are in sort of a dreamscape. So I think when we're awake, we're sharing sort of a collective consciousness that sort of procedurally generates itself, and it autonomously does that with our own subconscious, and we find ourselves kind of as an individual within that, sharing the space. And so I do agree with that. I feel like our emotions, our thoughts, our intentions, and attitudes and everything are actually shaping our physical reality ahead of ourselves, like placing the train tracks ahead of the train as we go, just outside of our field of vision, beyond our sight. And reality unfolds ahead of us according to that. So as our collective consciousness awakens to that realization that we're all sharing this reality of awareness together, that we uplift that perspective and vibration of awareness, and we have a more unified sense of how we all belong together, and we share this reality and what this is, being awake and alive and sharing consciousness and reality and what this is together, I think is all a unified thing. And if we realize that we're co-creators in that together, then we realize that we're all part of it, and we can uplift that and quit creating such a division, because I think the universe just wants that centered balance, and we tend to push against that with our own agendas. So the more we center in that, reality unfolds to us, and we begin to find our true purpose and place, and everything improves. So I don't know, that's kind of a big answer to that question, but I guess yes, I think we do share like a collective reality that we all contribute to and participate in, kind of like antennas on a radio sharing an ocean of signals that we all contribute to and receive together, and it's all about the harmony.
Wow. Deb has a follow-up, but you're quickly becoming one of my favorite guests ever. Go ahead, Deb.
Thanks,
No, I
man.
was just gonna say, so it's sort of like we're all a cosmic family, right?
Yeah.
Right, everybody? Okay,
Right.
that's all.
Oh my God. This is one of the most lovable human beings. Deb, is that it? Deb, do you have something else? Or can
No,
I
no, I
go with my-
actually
okay.
was recently looking at that idea of how science fiction and science fact push each other and inspire each other recently. And when
Yeah.
you made the comment about the train tracks, I think that's a perfect example. You know, we all come up with this idea and then someone goes, "Oh, that's a great idea." And then it becomes reality. So I think
Right.
that's a really like a concrete way of seeing that happen.
Yeah. And go ahead.
No, I was going to say my follow-up to Deb's question, which I'm not going to ask you now because I got to get to the symposium, but maybe when you do go on the Data Dojo, we can talk about this. But then it begs the question is, can your dream in real time influence someone else dreaming? I don't, I know you can, that you could probably go off on that, but I have got to get to the symposium or Steph's going to fire me like tomorrow. I'm
Yeah,
not
you
going
want
to
me to
have
give you a
job
quick
over here.
answer? A quick answer?
Go ahead, yeah.
Yeah, the work of Michael Persinger at the Stanford Research Institute showed he developed a system where they could put a headset on, electromagnetic headset, and have one person in one side of the building actually do like a remote viewing or project their consciousness out of body, and another person could project into their body and actually see what they were seeing, like read things off a page, and they could like swap consciousness into other bodies and different things, doing meditation and remote view and all kinds of crazy stuff. So the idea of like transferring into dreams and even into the past or like peering into the near future is all something that's kind of been documented and hidden from people that I think is part of our human potential that just is untapped or kept a secret. So
I love
think
it.
so. I think so. Yeah.
I love it. Debs, can I co-host on the Carl the Crusher episode, please? Can you book me a seat?
I might let you. I might.
Okay. I'll be there. You can count on it, even if I have my other hip replaced. All right, so I love the answer to the whole thing with the beard. Nathan's like digging it 'cause he's like, cool. Now if I go out and look at sites, this is going to help. I mean, it's going to be a value added.
Bonus.
But here's my question to you regarding the symposium, so Steph doesn't fire me. From a 30,000 foot view, if you are a UFO Twitter meathead, actually that pretty much describes me. Explain why it's important to attend an event like this, either in person or virtually, please.
Oh, that's a great question. Honestly, it's because for the first time ever, we have 4 pieces of new UFO footage that are going to be revealed and released that are along lines with the credentials of the other stuff that you've seen. They're military grade FLIR footage. There's like over 20 minutes worth of it. But the perspective of angles of the people that are coming, the keynote speakers to the symposium, are coming at it from such different angles. You have everybody from Avi Loeb, a Harvard professor who came onto the scene with his analysis of the Oumuamua, that interstellar object that came in through our solar system and seemed to make a U-turn around our planet, And from his perspective, all the way to like Paul Hynek is the son of J. Allen Hynek, head of Project Blue Book. And then Michelle Miners, like we talked about, she's connected with the Native American aspect. We have a whole spectrum of professionals and colleagues, researchers and scientists that are coming to not only reveal this footage, but there's been a high level of analysis done on it to kind of take it to the next level, which is what like Stephen Leah does. He's a video analyst who does a lot of that. I'm not even sure how much of that I'm allowed to talk about what he does, but yeah, for real. But the level of it that is coming to the table is really amazing, because for the first time, it's not just like we talked about, just about UFOs from outer space in the sky, but it's kind of bridging that gap to where we're able to talk about it from everybody's different perspective, because we have people there from Travis Taylor's from Skinwalker Ranch, Dwayne Ollinger and Charles Schneider. They're from Blind Frog Ranch, and their research is involved a lot with shadow figures and plasma shapes on the ground and on the side of the Mesa, and also UFOs in the sky. So it's kind of bridging that gap of fields of expertise and bringing it all onto the table in a collaborative effort. So no matter which approach you have to the topic, everybody can come and have something to discuss and respect each other and finally talk about it all together instead of having it be different slices of the same pie, pretending that they're all different categories.
And I'd like to add to your point before I turn it over to Monet, Nathan. When the government, we're talking about a congressional hearing that just happened. All of their staffers, I think I explained this with Steph and I spoke about this. They're looking at metrics. So when you're having two UFO conferences maybe in a weekend, and they're looking at how many tweets daily are on Twitter, how many interactions, how many impressions, that's when they're deciding, because they're going to say to the boss, hey, you know what, this is trending right now. I think it would be expedient, politically speaking, for us to get on board with this issue, at least tacitly or otherwise. And so I think this is a huge metric, what you guys are doing, and they will be tracking the results of that, and that adds to the pressure that it applies on government officials to speak about this. So with that, let me turn it over to Nathan, please.
Carl, we've kind of talked a little bit about legacy in a way. We talked about at the beginning of the show, the sort of ancient history, and here we are today, trying to reclaim some of that. And for me, at least, the symposium, it does represent, in some fashion, this legacy of those that have come before. You talked about Paul Hynek and his father, the work that he did with Project Blue Book. It's just one example that we are kind of coalescing around this topic in a way that hasn't necessarily happened at the scale that it's starting to happen, at least in the public space. You talked a little bit about as well, sort of this, shared reality, and how our intention and even our vocabulary, the way that we sort of share language and thinking about the world in which we inhabit, that influences the world. And so with that kind of context and thinking, what are some big things that you're hoping that will come out of this collaboration over the weekend?
Yeah, I think it really is just what I'm hoping for is that everybody just opens their mind and their eyes a little bit. At a deeper level, I'm hoping that, everybody collectively gathering together at the symposium maybe creates something phenomenal to occur. That's a little bit what Steph was hinting at as well, is that Michelle and I and other people have an intention set that hopefully over the symposium that maybe a UFO will show up and everybody there will see it, or we'll have some kind of a shared experience, or everybody will come back the next morning and be like, wow, we all had the same dream last night. What's going on here? Or some kind of a phenomenal experience that we all have to explain would be really cool if that could happen. But I do think that when you get different aspects of the research in the community that are usually prone to bickering and arguing together on the same focal point to actually discuss it in a collaborative effort, it does change the tone. Everybody can see that example, how people from Blind Frog Ranch and Skinwalker Ranch, working from completely different networks from Discovery Channel to History Channel, still can get together and be friends and focus on the bigger issue and the topic at hand, which is like helping shift the dialogue and the topic of conversation. Because right now, basically, a lot of people have impressions out of Hollywood and out of what they've grown up watching in movies and television when it comes to this topic. And that's part of the problem. And so I think having this symposium has opened up the door to where everybody from people like me, who's just an amateur researcher who goes out and hikes around and does it on their own and has a very personal relationship with it, to someone like Avi Loeb, a Harvard professor. And we're going to be sitting at the same table with mutual shared respect, having the same conversation. And that's huge. Those types of walls have never been dropped before. There's always been this barrier between the people in the suits and ties that are writing the scientific papers and the people at home dealing with the phenomenon in their own basement or whatever, or when they go to bed every night. And so having everybody finally coming together and discussing it on equal terms, that's the feeling that I think is coming from the symposium that's going to come out of it, that hopefully changes the atmosphere, is the collaborative effort from multiple different aspects of research. It just has to happen, because everybody disagreeing is not helping.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. Kevin, I think Kevin has a surprise for you. Kev.
I do. You're speaking of collaborations. Here's the thing. I've talked to a lot of people. I talked to Brandon Fugel. I talked to TJ Allard, and they rejected my idea. So I wanted to know maybe if you could bring this idea to the symposium, because there's going to be a lot of people there, and a lot of people need food. And so I came up with this idea. All right. So if Nathan can cue it up. So, yeah, I made Blind Frog Ranch dressing as a condiment, for all these people there. There's gonna be a lot of French fries. So, what do you think,
so
man?
Good. I think it's awesome. It already has the name in there. It already flows. The logo, you've already got it made. The labels already
I got it all made, and this is what it looks like
for me. Even
functionally, it's got your name on there and your face. Carl's own Blind Frog Ranch dressing. I've got another flavor for you too. I don't like recycling jokes, so I kind of went with a different one. So this is this is radioactive bacon flavor.
That's right.
Yeah,
right out of 3 Mile Island, baby.
That's right.
Spared no expense.
That's when you've dug too deep, right? You dug
right.
too deep.
Right. So yeah, we'll have a booth. We'll serve the ranch to everyone. That's my plan. With your name on it.
Sounds great.
I
can't believe that nobody else liked that idea. I'm all for startup ideas like that.
Yeah.
Kevin was going to just license it to, to TJ Allard and Company, and they didn't even bite on it. Skinwalker Ranch. Okay, fine. You could have made you millions of dollars, whatever.
It just rolls right off the tongue. I don't know how nobody's ever thought of it before, Kevin. I think it's brilliant.
Brandon, he's hoping that Kevin, passes away, and then he won't have any rights to it. That's what he's hoping. So anyway, he's waiting you out, Kev. Anyway, all right, Debs has something, has an audience ditty for you.
Okay, so in the questions in the audience, someone asked about Desai. Do you know what Desai is?
Let's see.
It was
Paul Hynek is an ambassador for the UAP Society. I don't know. I'm not familiar with that acronym. Maybe if I knew exactly what that was. I know Paul Hynek, he helped me. All I can do is talk about him personally. My relationship with him has just been a great individual. He helped contact the Night Vision company for me to help me put my presentation together for this Saturday. Helped me look up a lot of the astronomical alignments that were going on that night. Decentralized science. Okay, that's right. I don't know why that didn't occur to me. Decentralized science. Yeah, that's basically the emphasis in the heart of like the symposium. This idea that like having scientific research not be just part of what's done behind certain institutions' walls and protocols. It's the same thing that Jim Segala and Michelle Miners are doing with their MUPUS project. They're putting scientific equipment out into the community with actual experiencers. So people who are like, I'm having these out-of-body experiences where I think I might be abducted, or I keep seeing UFOs when I wake up at night and I go outside and I'm seeing these lights in the sky. They can actually put scientific equipment that's wearable, or they can put that in their living room or in their bedroom or out even in their backyard, and they can go back then after these people report encounters or paranormal incidents, and they can look at the scientific data and say, wow, there's actually like a spike at this level of gigahertz, and this frequency of gamma radiation just went off the charts. And they can even track where it moves across the valley with other people they have the sensors placed with and everything. And so the idea of decentralizing the research and the science is part of what helps people like me feel less crazy when you experience things, and it also makes it more realistic for people at high levels at scientific institutions or even at a government level to feel like they can share it without ridicule. And so it's kind of meeting on both ends, where I feel like the high level people and the grassroots level are finally allowed to talk. So decentralized science, I think, is part of that plan, is just like realizing that we live in an era today where the everyday person, even in their own home and garage, is doing a pretty significant amount of work and can do that with the internet. And so it should be respected. And so I think that's starting to happen. Yeah.
Deb was so cool. She's like, to make sure we didn't pass the baton. Works perfectly with my next question. Go ahead, Deb.
That's not why. I know that was literally okay. So anywho, I was interested in the science aspect because the symposium is bringing so many different people together. And one of the things that I caught was that Chris Lato was talking about his experiment that's going to be happening. And I was just wondering if you could just briefly summarize for people that civilian science experiment that everyone will be able to witness on Friday.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome. So Chris Leto, he's a former F-16 fighter pilot, and now has a whole NFT project to help fund and support a lot of the research that they're doing. And they've partnered up with Jim and Michelle, and they're launching, not only they're launching NFT art up into space for fun with this out of orbit balloon that they're launching from up at Blind Frog Ranch, but they're also putting one of those MUPA scientific equipment things in there. So we're going to see if above the Uinta Basin, just like they're trying to test around in the basin elsewhere to see if there's some sort of a signal or weird stuff up in the sky at a certain elevation. We're going to be launching a balloon up this Friday with sensor equipment on it and transmitting the data back to computers on Earth that are going to be tracking it. And similar type of research is going on that Avi Loeb's doing with his Galileo project and a lot of other people. And I'm kicking off my Magic Mesa research project and working on all of that. So there's going to be a lot of different aspects coming to the symposium. It's going to be exciting.
Chris Lato is quite an interesting character. Obviously, he's a colleague of mine from the Air Force from that standpoint, but son of basically his parents were hippies, lived in a commune, took a real interest in school in STEM, in science and math, figured out he was really good at it, went to the Air Force Academy, got a commission. You have to get a government gubernatorial or a senatorial letter basically to even be considered to get in the academy. Then in a competitive situation, flew F-16s and amassed a couple thousand hours. Then he retires and moves to Portugal because he didn't like the scene, what was going on here in the U.S., a very politically and divisive and charged environment. He said, I'm going to take my kids to Portugal, I'm going to surf and be in a little more relaxed area. Then his kids challenged him to start a YouTube channel. Next thing you know, with him starting a YouTube channel, he's got 16,000 subscribers or whatever the hell it is. And he's not only debunked the debunkers who were trying to debunk very, very verified Navy accounts of encounters, and he was able to, basically chaff those guys out of relevancy. But then he's exploring all the aspects of consciousness. Now, as you said, getting into NFTs and saying, you know what? I'm going to launch my own science project funded by NFTs, something that a lot of people my age don't even know about. Well, I'm going to learn about it. This is very Nathan-like in the way that he did that. I want to know about it. I'm going to learn about it. I'm going to become an expert in it. And the guy is amazing. I mean, like he really doesn't see boundaries of what he can do when he believes in something. And he's such a multifaceted cat. And with that, let me turn it over to Miss Stephanie.
Yeah, I'm excited for that balloon launch. It's going to be pretty monumental, really. So, but I wanted to also shed some light on one of the co-founders, Bob Brown. If it weren't for people such as him, these types of events, these would be taking that much longer to come forth. They've been gathering researchers and scientists and just people who are trying to collect this data. And it just so happens that all of this information is coming out now. So, the timing of it, it's pretty interesting that it's all kind of happening now. There are some some people in the background that haven't really had their name out there that, you know, they need to be recognized as well, because yeah, he's the co-founder of UFO MegaCon. So if it weren't for Bob Brown, then, you know, we wouldn't be doing this. So thanks to them. You know, Blind Frog Ranch is also another one of the sponsors. So, you know, it's right down the road there. I know people are aware of that. So we have a lot of people backing this, and that's just, it's very promising. It's promising for the future of this, because eventually one day we're all going to pass the torch on to the next generation. So it's just such a cool time to be sharing all of this data that we've collected, and you know, it's just awesome. So anyway, I just wanted to say hi to Bob and just say thanks, you guys, for producing this event. It's going to be awesome.
Yeah, there's something that a lot of people don't know. They just see the surface level marketing, like, hey, there's a convention going on. You know, they don't realize the line of synchronicity and the effort and the teams of people, and how this used to be, you know, UFO MegaCon, and how it the collaborative effort between that group and Blind Frog Ranch, pulling it together, working with the whole Uinta Basin, and there's so much going on behind the scenes. And even at a personal level, you know, the amount of, like, what I would consider miracles and crazy things that have occurred that have lined this event up to happen. What I hope that comes out of it is more events like this, that another one happens a year later and it's twice as big, and it becomes an avenue or a pipeline for people in positions that are sitting on footage or sitting on evidence that they need to get out and have no way to do it, to provide a safe place with people from all walks of life that can come and present it and have it revealed and released, and do it in a place where it's in a location up in Vernal where it's known for that and has that reputation. It's perfect. It's perfect.
Agreed.
Yeah, and I Nathan, that's a great point that you made, Steph. Nathan and I have talked about this at length. You know, everything on the earth ages and withers and dies. You know, everything wears away.
Mm-hmm.
And so too is our presence here as content creators, as UFO Twitter people. We will eventually not be doing this, and other newer, more interesting and more cool and more funny people will be doing this. So that, I don't know if a lot of people see that, and that's an important point that you made there, Steph. We have a limited amount of time that we're going to be doing this, even though people think I'm going to be popular forever and people are going to be liking my tweets 20 years from now. You know, probably not. But so, you know, take the time you have and expand the discussion and the conversation that you can, as you can. I love it. I'm going to be tuning in virtually this weekend, myself. And I have a question I want to ask. I want to pose this to Carl, get back to his research a little bit, and to Nathan as well, to weigh in on this one. Actually, I do the whole panel, but I know everybody else has questions I want to ask. So, when, you know, people will interact with and talk to their plants, I do. You know, my garden friends outside, and you kind of spoke about it, and I'd like to get your take and Nathan's take on this. When you get into a space and you're taking stock of that space, you're getting comfortable, and what is the importance of your communication at that point with the space in your mind?
Oh, it's everything for me. Yeah, that's a great question. I think that, you know, when we're born and we're young children, when we're really susceptible and we're trying to learn, and it's for good intentions, but like our parents and teachers, you know, they fill our heads full of language and words and labels for everything around us. You know, you learn triangle, square, dog, cat, labels, names for everything. And what ends up happening is this default mode in our brains where from the second that we wake up, this dialogue starts in the language that we were taught in our mind when we were born. And we identify that with who we are. That conversation that we have with ourselves the second that we wake up dominates our entire day usually. So I try through meditation and mindfulness, even day to day when I'm going about my business, try to step back behind that and become more of like the witness of those thoughts, and let that dialogue like go quiet, and I just observe things more like a primitive person might, or somebody like a cat would, sit and look at a mouse hole waiting for a mouse to come out. And so I think that sort of like stepping beyond the normal cultural sense of self and that default mode way of thinking and perceiving reality is a big part of my way of approaching all of this. Is like connecting at that deeper level, that deeper rooted sensitive level of intuition and connection with the environment that goes beyond just that conversation in my head. And sometimes that crosses into dreams, or what you would consider like a visionary experience, or out of body type experience, or remote viewing, or just a deep, beautiful, relaxing moment of presence and awareness where I'm sitting. And so it just depends on what my intention is and where I'm at, but definitely trying to open up and connect. I think when your thoughts are just racing constantly in your mind and the language, you're incapable of actually hearing or communicating with something that doesn't necessarily follow rules, right, or have an alphabet, something more of a naturally based thing, or maybe even an advanced entity might not think or communicate the same way. And so it's kind of like realizing you're stuck on one radio signal your whole life. You've been stuck on 101.5, and that's your dial on the radio. And then realizing that you can expand your awareness to perceive other signals, and you realize there's a whole ocean around you that you can perceive and interact with. And so that's what I try to do. Yeah.
Dude, there's way too much REO Speedwagon on that station. I'm just kidding. So Nathan, you're on an expedition. You arrive in one of these sacred spaces. You see something that looks like it could be, like it's historic. Obviously, what happens? How would you communicate with that?
Yeah, I think, Carl, the way that he unpacked this a little bit from his meditation practice is very helpful. The way in which we think, it literally does transform the way in which we are in the world. And so the things that are happening on the screen of our perception and the way we've been taught to delineate those things impacts directly the way in which we interact with everything around us. And so, I think if you're approaching let's use an example. So if you grew up in a religious tradition, for example, and you enter into a holy place that your tradition has venerated, you're going to approach that space from the vantage and the perspective of all of that tradition that comes behind it, that you have been taught and inherited. So you're going to have a kind of reverence for that space. Whereas someone who doesn't come from that tradition, it's just a big building. It's just a structure to them. It may not really mean anything to them at all. So I think it's an example of how that is an inherited way of approaching something, but we can be intentional about it. So Carl, talking to the fact that we are really kind of almost like passengers along this sort of train of thought, that we're really not in control. We're just kind of we're led along from one sequence of thoughts to another without really thinking or planning or whatever. We're just kind of a victim in a way of our thought processes. By interrupting that flow when we come into contact with something that is new and novel, and as you said, it could be a historic site, I think we have to be more intentional about it. We have to pause, observe, take in, try to, if you can, dissolve the separation between you, the observer, and what you are observing, because those are really kind of arbitrary differences, just as that there are arbitrary differences between the separation amongst all of us. We have this sense in which we are, distinct kind of entities going about our way, but we really aren't. We are interconnected in very deep, meaningful ways. And for those of us who believe that consciousness is kind of a fundamental quality of the universe, we're connected at a root level, that transcends these sort of language barriers and things of that nature. And Carl, I'm just kind of following your footsteps here because you're going exactly where I wanted to go. And that is also that when we think about non-human intelligence, which could encompass a lot of things, both things that we know about on this planet, but things that we may not know about in our universe, there is no reason to assume that intelligence is going to function and behave and think, and their entire thought structure is going to mimic our thought structure. So when we are interacting with non-human intelligence, and we've talked about this recently last week with Lou Elizondo about communication, we come into communication with a lot of assumptions, right? That if I do this, you're going to do that, and what you do there, that means what I think it means. The truth is we have no idea. And so this is a good example of putting into practice a new mode of thinking and of connection that is going to be essential for us to reach better understanding. We're kind of trying, we need to have to discard the baggage of the language that we've inherited and try to learn and adopt and put on the clothing of a new way of being and relating.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that at a high level. I think even another way of looking at it, we tend to think of like how do we communicate with non-humans? And by default, we start to imagine like alternate made up gibberish languages again, and we try to throw our own expectations onto that. But maybe instead of thinking of it, instead of a non-human interaction, think of it as a non-physical interaction and communication, because then even if you're communicating with like some version of yourself 10,000 years ago in ancient Egypt through meditation, you're going to have a non-physical interaction through that transcendental interaction and experience. It won't be with a language or physical communication even then. Even if it is a human to human telepathic communication, we're talking non-physical. So how does that work if you can't use words in a language that you were taught and that you think in the thoughts in your own mind? We have to think about how these interactions occur in a non-physical aspect with, we approach reality according to science and physics, and that's a great approach. But there's this whole non-physical reality just outside of that, outside of the crust of physics, that is non-physical, that doesn't have to follow the rules of physics. And so when you start to try and interface with that, the rules sort of change. You realize that communication doesn't have to be linear with words. It can come through as an epiphany or as a realization or as almost like a download where you suddenly know, almost like Neo in the Matrix, just like, wow, I know Kung Fu. You can come out of a meditation and feel like you've had an experience where you've gained like a wealth of suddenly of understanding and knowledge and such. So as much as it is like trying to communicate with non-humans, it's important to understand and open up to just non-physical communication is a totally other part of that conversation that is really important as well, because it all operates similarly but slightly different when you understand that. Yeah.
I'm thinking in terms of I'm traveling vicariously through you because I haven't done this, although, you might be the inspiration for me doing it, but that some of these places that you visited and like those petroglyphs where you found, the people who made those, there's an imprint there, not only a physical imprint, but there's also their presence is there still. And the question is, if I'm sitting there and I'm looking at it, can I connect to them and communicate an intention, which is what I think you're doing when you go there, when you arrive there. I think that's what you alluded to. Can I communicate an intention to know and to gain understanding without disturbing or disrupting in any way what they've left, and maybe gain some acceptance there? So that's how I view it in my very simple.
It's almost like approaching, even though there's no one there, and it feels like you're interacting, so to speak, with ghosts. It feels like you're approaching a foreign tribe and you're trying to gain fellowship, and so you try to approach it with that respect and that mindset. I do, anyways. Other people may not, but for me, that's very important to feel like I'm actually getting the truth of the message of the area and what they were trying to leave behind and what they were trying to say. So when it's about listening, it's not about asserting my agenda. It's about going there and becoming the environment and really listening and becoming a part of it and trying to get in touch with that. And it does, you can kind of get a sense of that residue still lives on. It definitely, I believe what I've found is what they actually point to, and that the magic is real and that it still lives on to this day. I just think that people don't know where to look or how to look.
You do. So we're gonna start closing. We're gonna start closing it out. But so I think Debs has something. So we're gonna take it around the horn. People are gonna say their last things. It'll be a little bit of a quick hitter. But please, Kevin has something, right? Kev.
I do.
Kevin, are you ready?
I'll go.
I'm frozen,
Kevin,
man.
I do.
Sorry.
If we're not closing, are we closing? I mean,
No, but but go ahead. You know, go ahead.
okay. Well,
Yeah.
one of the things I do, I like reading quotes now, and you brought up something about culture, so I wanted to read a Terrence McKenna quote and get your perspective on it. So I'm going to read it. It's culture. It says culture is a perversion. It fetishizes objects, creates consumer mania. It preaches endless forms of false happiness, endless forms of false understanding in the form of squirrely religions and silly cults. It invites people to diminish themselves and dehumanize themselves by behaving like machines. I found that very interesting.
Yeah, I agree with it totally. I think that, like we were just talking about a little bit ago, we get in like a default mode based on our culture and our upbringing, where things like religion or political ideas, you grow up belonging to a team, a political party, a religious group, and a whole subset of ideas that shapes your user interface. All of a sudden you find yourself, oh, I'm in this user interface and this is how I see reality and this is what it all means to me. And it might not even be the truth of who you really are underneath all of that, because all of that might have just been taught to you or put in there from the people that raised you. And so the real truth is what remains when everything else is gone. If all the hard drives were erased and computers were gone and the books were destroyed, what's still there, and what is that truth, and what really remains? And it's that human connection with awareness and reality and consciousness. Yeah.
Can I get it? Amen. Oh, sorry, man, that might have been misplaced.
Amen.
Debs, what you got, girlfriend?
Yeah.
I'll give you an amen.
I just wanted to bring it back a little bit to the conference, because I know that this is right around the corner. We need to get eyes on it so that people can absorb all of the different pieces you guys have put together. And one of those pieces comes from Mexico, and some people aren't really sure, and I'm going to say his name wrong, I apologize, who Musan is, but he is the George Knapp of Mexico. For those who are not aware, that's who he is. He's the George Knapp of Mexico. And there's actually a documentary about him that you can find. I think it might be on Prime still. That was really interesting. And he's going to be there. And I was actually really excited to see his name on that list. And I thought I'd bring it up and let you chime in a little bit about that.
Yeah, Jaime Musan. He's an awesome journalist, award-winning journalist down in Mexico. One of the big reasons why he's coming to the event, I'm not sure how much I'm allowed to talk about this, but it is kind of a teaser for this weekend. One of the unreleased pieces of footage, military-grade footage that's coming out of one of the UFOs, has to do with the border. It has to do with relations with Mexico, and may or may not allegedly even cross the border and have international sort of connections. And so having Jaime come and bring awareness down to Mexico is very relevant to some of the new pieces of UFO footage that are being released. So it's very relevant to the audience, and I know that we're even selling a lot of tickets for people that are watching online down in Mexico. It's very exciting.
Yes. Yeah, the online streaming is always available for everybody. So those are worldwide tickets there, you guys. So it's 3 days. I'll just touch on that really quick. You have your own unique code for each day. It lasts for 24 hours. You are not allowed to share that with other people. So just so you know, if you do, it will become null. But yeah, I mean, everybody is welcome to watch this live, as you know, everybody begins 9 a.m. Saturday morning. Avi Loeb's going to be presenting from the Galileo Project, speaking about Oumuamua and what's news to all of us. So yeah, it'll be all delivered at the same time. So yeah, online streaming, I highly suggest at this point. It's not too late. So definitely check in on that. And yeah, it's going to be a beautiful time. And by the way, Carl, your description of this abstract subject that we all so wish to follow was beautiful. So thanks for being on here tonight too.
Oh, thanks so much.
Yeah.
And
Thank you.
Steph, I think it's ironic that Oumuamua looked like an overcooked piece of Hawaiian spam. I don't know if that struck you at all, or but
I'm just trying to pronounce it, DJ, at this
all right,
point.
no, that's fine.
Abuamua.
All right, all
I'm
right.
just
So
kidding.
we had to. So actually, so that was your husband, Nathan. Do you have anything else for Mr. Vibe here?
Sure. Yeah. So, Carl, if we had Mad Libs this real quick, give me a few adjectives for this weekend, things that come to mind when you think about the things you've already seen, just to give people hype for what's coming up.
Oh, validating. For me, validating, reassuring, and refreshing. For me, that's how it all feels to me. It feels like kind of what I've been waiting for a long time from all these different perspectives. Yeah, everybody who participates and watches it, if you are even just watching at home from the live stream, there's going to be something that comes up over the course of the weekend that you're going to identify with or latch onto, that you can either join in, take part in, get involved in, or support the cause from whichever angle you want to take part in this disclosure movement. Because I think, even like Lou Elizondo says, it's beyond disclosure. The cat's already out of the bag. The government's already admitting that the UFOs are real. Now it's a matter of like understanding what it is. What is this? What are we dealing with? What are we looking at? And how do we approach it? How do we even look at it? And so that's where we're at now. And I think this is really kind of the first big conference where we're trying to do that. We're not discussing so much disclosure as far as like, are these real? We're now digging in.
That's
deeper.
over.
It's over.
Yep.
Now,
that
we're
discussion's
not, we're not trying to decide if this is real or not. Now we're doing analysis, and we're digging in from a multifaceted and angled approach from all angles to try and do it. So, yeah, that's more than adjectives what you're asking for. But yeah,
That's
I'm
perfect.
stoked.
Yeah,
Stoked.
very excited, man.
Yeah, that moose you see in Kevin's hair, it's not a question of whether it's real. Yes, it's real. Okay, Deb, what do you have?
Yeah, actually, I wanted to chime in a little earlier when we were talking about the online sales, because this is actually very special. We had mentioned earlier, Nathan was talking about the legacy. We're at another level now. We're giving access to people who are interested in this subject, but did not have access to conferences before. I'm one of those people. I can't afford airplanes, so I can't afford hotel rooms. I work for a nonprofit. I'm poor, guys. So I'm
But we
thrilled
love
that
you.
that's available to people. Yeah, thank you.
Yes.
So I'm thrilled that that's available, that we have that access, and I just want to like tie that in with, it's like we're making a virtual collective consciousness.
That's right.
$49.99. When? Okay,
Okay,
UFO Disclosure Symposium this weekend, Vernal, Utah. Blind Fog Ranch, tons of speakers, including Carl the Crusher. Stephanie is going to be there, kind of like being cool. I think that's probably, like one of her strong suits.
It's like her default mode, right?
Yeah, her default mode, right? So, and you're going to be, when is he coming on the Data Dojo or Data Dojo, Debs?
He's actually my first guest when I come back from Disney World. So that'll be I think it's the first week in July.
I will be there. Unless I perish between now and then, Carl, I'll be there.
Sounds awesome.
That's how much I want to talk to you again. Okay. Okay. And Steph would like to mention the debrief.
Debrief's going to be there. Christine Newton, Micah Hanks, they're going to be out there supporting and rocking it out. So you'll be hearing from them quite a bit. So,
and Tim McMillan will be drinking cognac on the Rhine, watching on his computer. Tim, where are you? So anyway. Oh man, it's been an honor to speak with you. Really, this was very, very thought-provoking, very resonant with me, and not only me, everybody here, but I'm just speaking for me personally. So yeah, I can't wait till you come on, and then we'll wait, since Deb, was so great at booking you. We'll wait a little bit, and then we'll get you on cab. Okay, yeah, we got to do that, because there's so much to discuss with you. It's ridiculous. Like, this is nothing. So everybody say goodbye to my man, Carl the Crusher.
Appreciate you guys. Thanks so much for having me. It's been awesome.
Man,
Make
it's
some
been a
damn
pleasure.
noise. Ha!
Thank you, Carl. Thank you, Carl.
All right, for Kevs, for Money Nathan, for Debs, for Stephadelic, this is DJ saying peace out, one love. We'll see you down the road. And remember, this crew is always wondering what's up around the bend.
Yeah. Peace.